story?
I do. Alex Burfield asks, if Ben Affleck directed the next Batman solo film, what storyline would you like to see him take on?
Don't care. Because look, seriously, remember we talked a little bit about Marvel villains before. I was like, hey, if they got Marvel villains have been a little weak aside from Loki or whatever, and maybe the Red Skull. Maybe if they got this villain from the comic book, it'd be better. No. It doesn't matter. It does not matter which villain they take from the comics or anything like that. It matters how do the writers and the director treat that villain. What do they have that villain doing? That's what's important. They could go in and do the Killing Joke, or they could do No Man's Land, or they could do any of these Batman stories they could do. But it really doesn't matter. It depends how will the writers and director treat that story, how will they adapt it, and what will they do with it. That's the important thing. You tell me, Ben Affleck, you confirm it. You have Warner Brothers, you get Kevin Fukunaga, is that it?
Tsujihara.
Tsujihara,
Yeah.
thank you. I was thinking of Carrie. You get him to come on the show and say, it's done, we've signed it, Ben Affleck's directing, and we're going to go and blah, blah, blah. I don't care what storyline you're saying, because I trust that him and the writers he usually chooses to work with are going to give us something awesome regardless of what storyline they choose from the comics. I don't know, Schnepp, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, any of these storylines from the comics can be adapted into the films. I think Batman, just like Spider-Man, has a great rogues gallery that haven't been really seen too much. I mean, he's got so many, like a lot of people want to see the Red Hood. A lot of people, like myself, I'd love to see a Penguin adaptation, but maybe not the old Tim Burton one, but like something like refreshed and new. There's always room for a new Joker. We've got a new Joker. I wouldn't mind seeing Jared Leto in there. So I think it's ripe to establish the Batman and the Ben Affleck Batman universe, so you can have a lot of villains in there and whatever storyline.
There's so much potential there, so you almost don't want to steer it in a direction that would go too crazy. Like for me, Azrael's what popped in my head initially, and I'm like, well, you still want to make sure you have a bunch of movies that you can do with Ben Affleck as Batman, because he looks so awesome as this Batman. But I echo your guys' sentiments. Like, it doesn't matter what the story is, as long as we have a great team writing it, producing it, directing it, and of course Ben Affleck starring as Batman. Him and Alfred could be at Home Depot picking out which kind of grass to grow around Wayne Manor, and I'd be like, this is Batman. It's awesome.
I always thought that Philip Seymour Hoffman would have made a great Penguin.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah.
Like that type of Penguin you and I always used to talk about. Yeah. All right, what's next?
Alexander Burton asks, I've read articles saying that the opening weekend prediction for Batman vs. Superman is 154 million. Is this too high or low?
Yep.
Low?
Yeah.
150. What world do we live in? That's a movie. It's 154 million opening. We're going to call that low.
Well, you know what's weird? I mean, I would have said, like, I still think it's going to kick 200 million opening weekend. But when the hours is like 2.5 hours, that means they can't put as many showings in per theater. That affects it by about 1 or 2 films per day. I think just that extra 30 minutes and then time in, time out. That adds up. If you have you could have shown 9 films that day, now it's 7 because of just that extra half hour versus a 90-minute superhero film where you can chuck in 13 screenings a day. That just bolsters your ability to get more people, especially on opening weekend when you have lines around the block. People are like, I gotta see Deadpool. You saw those pictures of people. I haven't seen lines like that since Star Wars, really. I mean, just lines outside of the theater. So I think we're gonna get that with a film like Batman v Superman. I mean, look, we've all been talking about whether or not it's going to be good, great, or amazing, or incredible. It's going to be in that ballpark. I'd be shocked and amazed. I mean, horrifyingly amazed if it was came out with Fantastic Four numbers. It's got an 11 on Rotten Tomatoes. You'd be like, that's impossible. Would that just literally be almost impossible? None of us at the table would think that. So I think with the expectations and how many people just want to see this film, that it'll easily clear 200 million.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's easily going to clear 200 million, but I think it will get over there. I think it's 200. I think it's right at the mark. I think it's probably going to land somewhere between Age of Ultron, which was 187, and the original Avengers, which I think was a little over 200, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So I would say $201 million for Batman v Superman. Then everybody can bitch about how it didn't quite get to the Avengers number.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I don't think the $154 million number is a low number. I don't, but I will peg it around 185. I think so. We're all pretty close on it. Yeah. I think it's going to hit 185. And here's the thing, DC fans. If it hits 185, let's say it doesn't clear 200 million for argument's sake. Right. Let's say it hits 185. Do not start crying and lamenting about the failure of Batman v Superman if it makes $185 million on opening weekend. Less than a handful of films in history have ever made those kinds of numbers. You got to consider that a smash success. If it does hit the 200 mark, say 210, 212, something like that, don't start crying and lamenting that, yeah, but it didn't get to Star Wars numbers. It was never going to get to Star Wars numbers, so don't even worry about that. It's going to do great. It's going to be really successful, especially opening weekend. All right, let's take two more.
Justin Ward asks, are there plans to feature more directors / cast to promote their upcoming movies? I like it.
I would think we'd always be open to it. I mean, now at this point now, I'm speaking for Dennis. I mean, Dennis is the one who's going to be making those decisions. Generally speaking, Dennis hates people. So, I mean, I don't know. No, I have a feeling that, yes, the plan will be to have some more filmmakers and stuff like that on the show. I think so.
I
enjoyed having John Hillcoat.
Yeah, John
in here.
Hillcoat. If you get people like John Hillcoat, an incredibly intelligent, super amazing, incredibly talented directors and writers and actors, that's all always fun when you have amazing talent on.
Yeah, it's great that he was like hanging out, talking like news stories with us. It was just like we're just hanging out at a bar talking about all these different news stories, and then now we'll talk about your movie. But even if it's just a chance, like when I was last week, I was lucky enough to talk to Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, and it's just great to get even a 10 or 15 minute chat with somebody who has that amount of passion for the project they created. If they really cared about the product they'd make, you would think Movie Talk would be one of the prime destinations for a director to come hang out.
Yeah. All right, last question of the day.
Last question comes from Summon Fly. Before John Campea leaves, can he tell us those other 6 movies he's given a 10 out of 10?
Oh, I'd have to look them up. Amelie got a 10 for me. Shawshank Redemption got a 10 for me. My first viewing of Borat, I actually gave Borat a 10 because I was just so floored by it. It doesn't hold up to subsequent screenings as well.
People were quoting that like all over the place, and so it kind of loses some luster.
It pushed a lot of boundaries. When you first saw it, you were like, holy shit, you know, he's wrestling that giant.
It wasn't just what it really struck me about Borat, though, wasn't just great shock comedy. To me, the intelligence of how it held up a mirror to our culture. To see the ridiculousness of our own culture within this ridiculous spokesperson, right, at the time. But I revoked that 10 later on. Up got a 10 from me. I'll have to go back and look up which ones they were again. I'm sure a few of you guys who've been following me for a long time, you probably be able to answer that question. So I'll compile a list of which ones those were, and I'll put them on my Facebook page at some point.
Hey guys, if you like this clip, click here to watch the entire episode. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because it'll help you stay up to date with all the stuff we've got going on here at Collider.